Hello, everyone. This is Misha Houston, and I'm here to do my review of If Loving You Is Wrong. Tonight's episode is entitled Golfer, and I thought it was a pretty good episode. I enjoyed the confrontations. I certainly enjoyed seeing Eddie, take his revenge out on Larry. I certainly enjoyed that. I enjoyed pretty much the entire episode. There was a little bit more, movement in the story, and I appreciated that. And all in all, I thought it was a good episode. Now, as you can see, I've got my intro back. I've resolved, well, hopefully, resolved some of my issues with the software, and hopefully, things can get back on track. I think I'm gonna go ahead and stick, with the format that I used last week. It's a whole lot quicker, and it's just much easier for me than to sit down and write 8 or 9 pages worth of notes. So as per last week, I'm going to go ahead, watch the episode scene by scene, and give my opinion on it. I'll try to be as in depth as possible, but hopefully, this will be a better format for everyone. I appreciate my subscribers, and if you have any comments, please make sure you put them in the comments section. As I said before, tonight's episode is entitled Golfer. So here we go. The first group of people we go to is Lucian, Brad, Randal, Stephen, and another officer. Now, Randal and Brad are being brought into the prison, and Lucian walks by, and Stephen and him start talking. Stephen says that these two, Brad and Randal, were in a bar fight in a restaurant called Pickles. Now, Randal is completely and totally belligerent at this point. He's, mouthing off and being the obnoxious person that he is. And Brad, is standing there silent. Lucian, wants to know what happened. But Randal, is consistently popping off. He's very angry. He's very upset. He's calling for a lawyer. He's getting very, very defensive, and the story really, hasn't been told, just yet. Lucian asks Brad what happened, and Randal is immediately, angry and upset and hurt that his side of the story isn't being told. Now, Brad is standing there and he's telling Lucian that he was at the restaurant called Pickles with Marcie, and he apparently, was very jealous. Randal was very jealous and upset, and he came over to the table and started off with his normal harassments. Brad thinks that Randal followed him to the restaurant, and it occurs to him that Randal may have put a tracker on his car. Now, Randal, says that that is ridiculous, but he, we all know Randal. We all know that this is certainly the type of thing that he would do. Brad tells Lucian the story, and Lucian, proceeds to uncuff Brad. Now, Randal is very upset by this, and he's, hurling insults at Lucian and at everyone in the room, and it's only making Lucian more and more upset. Now, Brad is being, uncuffed, and he is told that he can go home. Now, Randal sees that Brad is going home and he's very upset. He's popping off, saying his, normal insults and curses. And he calls Lucian an Uncle Tom. You're just an Uncle Tom with a badge. You know, uh, Lucian is getting more and more upset and getting more and more annoyed with Randal. And Lucian, by the end just says, you know what, I was going to let the both of you go. But now that you're, sitting there popping off and having an attitude, so on and so forth, I think I'm gonna let you stay, in a holding cell for the night. You, uh, uh, Randall is hurt and upset by this. He calls him an Uncle Tom. He challenges him, saying that you just let Brad go just like you let Eddie go, you know, when he tried to come after me. But Lucian is unmoved by all of this, and he calls another officer over, and they put Randall in a holding cell. The next two people we go to is Marcie and Ian. Now, Marcie and Ian are on the phone and they're talking about what happened at the restaurant. Ian can barely believe that Randall is this bad, but he sees for himself how harassing and how obnoxious and how hurtful he's been, to people, and especially Marcie in particular. He says that he is going to try to help her as best as he can. And Marcie, is pleased by that. I mean, Larry was unable and unwilling, to get the divorce papers signed. And Ian, apparently has appointed himself, to the case. He's going to try to do something, to try to end the marriage and to stop these harassments and these torments. Now, Ian asked Marcie a question. Why didn't you tell me that you were pregnant? And Marcie says that it really wasn't any of your business. And Ian agrees with that, but he thought that the two of them, were bonding. And I mean, I'm thinking that they were bonding too. I think she probably, didn't tell him because she didn't want, to lose him. I mean, it's this the baby, is a tie to Randall. And I think that she decided not to tell Ian, to try to protect the baby and to protect herself, from any more hurts and disappointments. But she is, is very appreciative of Ian, for helping her with this. And he, is trying to think up, some suggestions. And he said that he was going to go and talk to Larry, as soon as he can. They're both in their separate beds, and it's a very very nice scene. I mean, I'm not quite sure, what Marcie is doing. I mean, she says that she loves Brad, but yet she's got this emotional tie to Ian. I mean, she obviously likes him. I don't think that she's using him strictly, for his skills as a lawyer, but I mean, I think she likes him too. And I'm starting to, become confused by this. Which man does she want? Does she want Brad or does she want Ian? And on top of all of that, she's trying to hold on to Randall's baby. And I'm just confused by Marcie at this point. But apparently, Ian is on Marcie's side and she's appreciative of it. And they say their good nights to each other. Now, after they hang up, Marcie, holds her belly. She's having pains of the stomach. I don't know if the baby is miscarrying. I'm not quite sure. It's well known that she, may not be able to carry this baby to term. And now she's having pains, in her stomach. So we're going to have to see, what happens with Marcie and the pregnancy. I saw next week's preview and she's going to be in the hospital, and we're just going to have to see what happens in regards to the baby. The next group of people we go to is Steven, Esperanza, and the babysitter. Now, Esperanza comes home and she pays the babysitter and sends her on her way. Then she goes to Mika's room and checks on her. And then she proceeds to go to her own bedroom. And Steven is outside, waiting to come in. He has to climb, through the window just to get into Esperanza's bedroom. Now, they make their way into the bedroom, and he, well, rather she, pushes him down upon the bed, and she is straddling him. She says, "Don't touch me, don't say a word, just put your hands behind your back." She is on top of him and she is undressing him, and then they proceed to have sex. Now he tries to touch her, but she's not having that just yet. She slaps him. She slaps his face, and says, "Don't don't touch me yet." But eventually, she allows she allows him to touch her, and then they go on with their lovemaking. Now, I personally don't have a problem, with the sex game, to each his own. But to have him climb through the window, to have him, I mean, she treats him like a dog. She treats him like a dog, and I just don't understand why he's putting up with this. I mean, I'm sure that she's a very beautiful woman and a wonderful lover, but to have him climb through the window and then you know, use the guise of it to say, "Oh, we need to be quiet because of Mika." I mean, I don't think that's it. I mean, I think he could have made less noise just walking in through the back door. But she's having him climb, into the window, and to me, it's just very, very humiliating. I don't really get the two of them anymore. He can't even hold her hand as they walk down the street. I mean, I'm sure the sex is very good, but I mean, it's more to to a relationship than sex. Sex is, I mean, it's about respect. I mean, and she just doesn't respect him as a man. I mean, I can understand her not wanting him to walk through the front door, but through the window. I mean, it's just ridiculous. I just think it's very ridiculous. I think it's very disrespectful to Steven. But as I said before, they're still lovers, and we're going to have to see what happens later on with those two. The next group of people we go to is Alex and Brad. Now, Alex is upstairs in the bedroom and she's looking out the window, watching Brad, drive home and park his car in the driveway. Now, outside, Brad examines his truck. He examines the under part of the truck. And, in the back, he sees a tracker, a GPS tracker on his truck. Apparently, Randall did put a GPS tracker on his truck to follow his movements. And he has found it and he takes it off of his car and brings it on into the house. Inside of the house, Alex, comes down the stairs and then they end up talking. She tries to divert the subject off of the fact that she got caught with Randall, but Brad isn't here for that. He tells her, "I told you not to talk to him again." She says she's sorry, and she says that he was blasting loud music and she was angry and upset and he was waking up the baby. Brad, doesn't believe that. He just doesn't believe a word she says anymore, as he shouldn't. He, plainly gives her an ultimatum. She's saying, "If I catch you in a lie again, Alex, I'm going to leave you. No matter how big, no matter how small, tell me the truth. Because if you don't tell me the truth, I'm going to leave you for good." Alex, is standing on her soapbox once again saying that she isn't lying. He asked her, "Are you lying about anything else besides this?" And she lies and says, "No, I'm not lying." But we all know that she is lying about Dr. Ralston. So, Brad has every right to be upset, to be suspicious and, uncaring of Alex because she is still lying to him even now. He tells her, "No matter how big, no matter how small this lie is, I'm going to leave you if I catch you one more time." Alex, says that, "What do you want me to say? What do you want me to do?" And Brad says, "I want you to tell me that you're not lying to me anymore, that what you're saying is true." And she's continually telling him that I haven't lied about anything, but we all know the truth, and I think that truth is going to come out sooner or later. Alex is just a fundamentally dishonest person. I mean, when the truth is inconvenient, she just starts lying. And Brad, has gotten tired of it. So pretty much, she tries to make him some food or warm him up something, but he says that I don't want anything and I just want you to go on upstairs to the bedroom. She tries to invite him up there, but he remains on the couch. So, I mean, their marriage is, pretty much over. I mean, I think it's just a time waster. And I just think that Brad never should have went back there at all. I mean, it's just ridiculous and it's just silly. The next two people we go to is Natalie and Lucian. Now, Natalie wakes up Lucian, and then they start talking about Kelly's situation. Kelly, is in jail right now at the police station, and Natalie, wants to know what's going on with her. Lucian tells her that Kelly, has a lawyer, a public defender, and Natalie doesn't think that that is enough. She thinks that some lawyers are very good, but some, of those lawyers, those public defenders, are overworked, and Kelly needs better for herself. Natalie, brings up the solution of Lucian paying for the lawyer. Lucian, doesn't really want to do that, and I can't really hold that against him as well. But Natalie, is getting a little bit desperate now. You can see it in her. She wants Kelly out of jail. And not so much that she wants Kelly to be free, but she wants Kelly to come on back and get justice. Natalie, in my opinion, is a little afraid of justice. I mean, she doesn't really want to be bothered with him. And Lucian, brings up the idea of taking injustice in case Kelly is convicted, and she is completely and totally against that. She says that she has 3 kids already, and it's already too much. And Natalie, believes that justice is sick and needs help, and she just doesn't really want to be bothered with justice. I mean, I know she's trying to put up a brave front, but she just doesn't want to be bothered with justice, not with another child, especially someone that told her that he killed someone. She is determined for Lucian to get Kelly a decent lawyer, and Kelly does need a better attorney. But this pretty much all Kelly has right now. Lucian, wants to help Kelly as best he can, but it's really only so much that he could do. And it's just a bad situation for Kelly. Natalie is afraid of justice and doesn't really want to be bothered with him. She wonders where his family is, and it's just a scene where she's trying to put up this false front, but the truth is she just doesn't want to be bothered with justice anymore. She's scared of him. She's afraid of him. She doesn't really want him in the house and around the kids. She tries to downplay it, but it's really obvious that she doesn't want to be bothered with justice anymore. And Lucian just tells her that everything's gonna be okay. It's gonna work itself out somehow, and not to stress herself out. She tells Lucian that you are really no better than me because you can only sit with the kids for a couple of hours and then you're running off to do something else. He tries to argue, his point of view, but there's really no point to it. And the next group of people we go to is Steven, Esperanza, and Eddie. Now, in the morning, Esperanza wakes Steven up complaining that he's snoring, and she just thinks that he should leave. He gets up out of bed and starts to get dressed, and then she starts talking to him, saying, "I'm surprised that you're not arguing about this." But Steven says, "No, it's not a problem." they talk about how he should leave the house, and he thinks that she may want him to go back out of the window, but she eventually agrees to just use the front door, which is absolutely right. I mean, having him go in and out of the window, I mean, it's humiliating and it's dehumanizing in my opinion. Now, Stephen, think is starting to think that maybe they should end this. I mean, he is complaining to her about not really knowing the true her. And she's countering, saying that you do know me, but he is saying that you only are showing me the shell of Esperanza and not the true Esperanza. She also complains to him about him only wanting sex from her. But I think she's disproving her own point. She's afraid to let him into her heart. So he's just giving her sex but she is offended by that. Esperanza, you don't want to acknowledge him in public. You don't want to hold his hand. You don't want to get to know him better. All there is left is sex to give, and he is giving that. But Stephen, wants to give more. He wants to get to know her, and it be acknowledged, in public together, and do what normal folks do. But Esperanza is completely, and totally against that. She's been hurt, and she just doesn't, feel ready, to be in a full-fledged relationship with someone else. He floats the idea of them just ending this all together, and she says that she is cool with that. It's just, it's more, to a relationship, than sex. And she is really against there being anything else, and Stephen wants more, and he has become unhappy with this arrangement. So basically, I guess they've broken up, I guess, for the first time. They may get back together later on. I don't know. I'm not sure. And to be honest with you, I really don't care. Those two didn't have a long shelf life, in my opinion. Now, Steven, goes out the front door, and he's, finishing, dressing himself and buttoning up his shirts, and he goes outside and he sees Eddie sitting on his bike with the phone in his hand. Apparently, Eddie, has been timing the time from when he came into the house until he left. And I guess it was about 3 hours or so, 3 hours and 47 minutes, he says. Eddie is very, very, very upset. And you know how Eddie is. He just wants to shoot him down right then and there. Eddie is making these threats to Steven, and Steven is not afraid of him at all. He's showing no fear. And for Steven, that's not really a common, it is a common thing. He's just not afraid of Eddie in that way. He's challenging him. He's saying, "Hey, you want me dead? Come shoot me. What you waiting for?" And then Eddie says, "The only thing that's keeping you alive right now is that FBI badge." They're both federal, employees, federal agents, and that's pretty much the reason why Eddie hasn't tried to kill Steven yet. But he makes it clear that one day he will shoot him. Steven just tells him, "I don't care what you say or what you do, just get off my bike and let me go on with my business." Eddie gets off the bike, and Steven, gets back on. But Steven is not going to leave the house until Eddie leaves. He doesn't want Eddie going in there harassing Esperanza. So, eventually Eddie leaves, makes a few more threats, and then he goes on, with his truck. Go on back to his truck so he can go ahead and drive away. Steven backs his bike out of the driveway and drives away. And Eddie, gets in his truck and he drives. The next group of people we go to is Randal, the policeman, and Kelly. Now, Randal has been let out of his cell. He had to sit in a holding cell for the night, and they've come to let him out. They sit him down directly in front of Kelly's cell, and he is handcuffed to the bench. The police officer says he'll be right back. Uh, but, Randall is offended by having to be handcuffed, but the police officer says it's just policy. So just sit here and chill, and you'll be out in a little while. Randall, who is sitting in front of Kelly's cell, starts to goad her and harass her like he does with everyone else. He's laughing at her and jeering at her and taunting her about being in prison. He is making a mockery of the situation that she's going through. Uh, and he's just being his normal, obnoxious self. He just can't help it. It really shows how sadistic he is and how much he enjoys the suffering of others. I mean, he is just laughing at Kelly, and he just thinks it's so funny. And he is taunting her, to the point where she is screaming, for a guard to help her. The guard comes in and he says that he'll only be here for a minute, and he orders Randall to be quiet. But Randall does not, he doesn't do what he is told. He continues on with his harassment of Kelly. Kelly, is getting angrier, and she's starting to cry a little bit, and she's just very upset by this, but she's trying to hold on. But then, he starts talking about Justice, her son, and then she starts to get angry about that, and she's telling him, don't you dare, mention my son. But Randall, continues on. He continues with his harassments and his taunting, and he brings Justice into this. He says that Justice is going to be an orphan, and all because his mother had a gun and shot someone. And Kelly, stands up, and she's screaming at him, telling him to be quiet, shut your mouth, don't be talking about my son. But Randall carries on, with his taunts and his jeering and his, humiliation and harassment of Kelly. She says, she screams at him, guess what? Maybe I'll shoot you like I shot Travis. And then, he starts laughing at her, full fledged chuckle, laughing at her. And she's saying, what is so funny? And then he points upward. And then there's a camera staring right in Kelly's face. And then he tells her, you are so stupid. I just walked you right into that trap, and it has become so much easier for them to prosecute you now. And he's laughing at this. He thinks he is the smartest, person in the room, and he enjoys, the harassment of others. I mean, you can really tell how cerebral he is. He is a psychologist. He made straight A's in school, and he knows about human behavior. He knows what buttons to push and what sores to pick at, pretty much. And he picked at Kelly and worked her up and got her all upset. And by the end of it, he got her to incriminate herself even more. The next group of people we go to is Eddie and Larry. Now, Eddie drives up somewhere into the woods next to the abandoned trailer truck. And Larry, is still tied up inside. Now, Larry, it has been beaten even worse. He's been tortured, and you can see there's blood on his shirt. There are bruises on his face, and his spirit is low. You can really see that he has been tortured and put through the ringer by Eddie. But Eddie, is enjoying this, and he has no intention of stopping. Larry, wants this to end. He just wants this to stop. And he's pleading with Eddie. He's pleading with him to just let this stop, let this end. He thinks that people have been looking for him and calling for him. But Eddie tells him, no one has looked for you. No one has called about you. No one, has called. Not even your own wife has called. Everybody hates you as maybe more than you think, and as much as they hate me. Larry, sees the plastic bag in Eddie's hand, and he's, trying to get away from him. He's saying, "No, please don't do this anymore. Not again, not again." But Eddie, is set on doing what he wants with Larry for now. Larry, tries to negotiate with him. He says, you're choking me, and maybe there needs to be a safe word. Apparently, a safe word is a word that you can use when you're playing, the S&M games, to to say stop. If it gets too rough, if it gets too much to handle, the person, the submissive, can have a safe word. And if the safe word is spoken, then the dominant, the master, has to stop. He says, "What word would you like to use?" And Larry says, "Golfer," which is the name of the episode. Um, and but Eddie, just thinks that is sick. I mean, he tells him, "I am not into your S&M games. I'm a killer. This is not a game. This is real life. I'm not into that like you are." And he sees the plastic bag, and Larry, is upset. He's hurt and wants this to end, but Eddie, proceeds to put the plastic bag back over Larry's head. Larry is choking, and he's uh the having the plastic wrap tight across his face and on his head, and he's losing air, and Eddie is just enjoying every minute of this. Larry passes out from suffocation, and he pretty much takes the bag off of Larry's head, and I guess he's passed out, from lack of oxygen. The last group of people we go to is Marcie, Dr. Ralston, Alex, and Brad. Now, Marcie is at the hospital now, and she, is in pain. She's having stomach pains, and she is in distress, and she is very much worried about losing the baby. Dr. Ralston, her OBGYN, is with her now, and she's trying to help her, trying to comfort her, and trying to get her to relax and breathe. Marcie is very much afraid that she may lose this baby, and something like this has happened before. Apparently, as we all know, Marcie, may not be able to carry this baby to term. She hasn't had a baby before. She hasn't been able to carry a baby to term, and something like this has happened, and she's very worried about losing this baby. Now, Dr. Rawson is telling her to relax and breathe, and she wants to give her something for the pain, but she needs to run a few tests first. Marcie, tries her best to relax and breathe and to calm herself down. Dr. Rawson asks her, "Is there someone that you want me to call?" And she says, "Yes, I want you to call Brad Montgomery. His number is in my phone." Now, Dr. Ralston, knows that Brad is Alex's husband, but she agrees to call anyway. Now, she gives Dr. Ralston the password to the phone, but Brad's name is not there. Marcie says that Brad's number is listed underneath the terms, the words, "my future." This is very awkward and uncomfortable for Dr. Ralston, but she leaves the room and calls anyway. Now, outside of the room, Alex, answers the telephone, and she wants to know what's going on here. Dr. Ralston says that Marcie is in the hospital right now and is asking for Brad. Um, Alex, lies to Dr. Ralston and says that he is asleep right now, which we all know Brad is not. It's just another one of her lies, and she refuses to give the phone to Brad. She refuses to wake him up. Dr. Rawson is telling her this is very, very uncomfortable. Marcy's in the hospital and she's insisting on talking to Brad, but Alex, is putting up that roadblock. She's lying to Dr. Rawson and saying that Brad is asleep and can't be woken up right now. Then Dr. Ralston says, will you, when he wakes up, will you give him the message? And she, pretty much lies again to Dr. Ralston and says, yeah, I'll wake him up and give him the message. But we all know Alex, she doesn't want Brad around Marcie, and she's gonna put up these roadblocks to try to keep them apart. Just then, after she hangs up the phone with the doctor, Brad walks in wide awake and dressed, and he's asking Alex who was on the phone. And she's got this look in her eye like she wants to tell a lie, but she can't. Brad is asking her again, who was it? And that is where our episode ends. As I said before, this was a pretty decent episode. I appreciated and I enjoyed it from beginning to end. And I will be back next week with the next installment. The next episode will be entitled Rock Solid. My MVP of the episode is Brad for telling, Alex straight up, if you lie to me again, I'm going to leave you for good. So for that, I've named him my MVP. Thank you all so much for watching my video. If you like my video, make sure you like, comment, share, and subscribe. And I will be back next week with the next episode. Enjoy your life as I do, and have a wonderful, wonderful day. Thank you so much.